I am the big tank.
On the battlefield of life, nothing's harder than a tank. Yeah, have you ever met a man, heart's full of love, bigger than a tank?
Big tank.
He served in a few wars, he's a veteran that stands for a cause. For the best interviews and news, just keep it glued to the tank.
I am the tank, big
Big
tank.
tank talk.
Tank.
Big tank talk.
Tank.
Then we got the thumbs up. So you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Big Tank Talk. Today I have the unique pleasure of introducing Canada's own Tim Lazenby, also known as nhlphd. So before I ask you the first question I ask everybody, why nhlphd?
It's kind of a long story. For those who have known me for a while on this app, I was posting under TimLazenbyOfficial. Long story short, I flipped the content recently to posting hockey stuff. And
Right.
That's one of my passions, just knowledge of the game and history and stories and all that other stuff. So that's why.
Welcome in, Tina. Okay. Now my first official question, I guess. Tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be on Clapper.
A little bit about me. Okay, well, you said I'm Canadian. I am 40, although I look much older. Married, 4 kids, although the real answer is too many. I say all the time one of them is going to get voted off the island soon, but I have 4 for now, you know. And I came to Clapper originally. Appreciate you, Tina. I came to Clapper originally. I started out on TikTok doing hockey stuff. And I struggle with a variety of things. I have constant chronic pain, bipolar. I have addiction issues, and all. There's a lot going on. And I remember at the time I wanted to use my following for some good with some of those issues, so people could talk about mental health and addiction and all that stuff that so many of us struggle with. I call them invisible illnesses, right? And I remember being on TikTok, and I wanted to do a live one time, and I wanted to put, I have bipolar, ask me questions. And it got flagged. They wouldn't let me put it. And that was like the start of it, basically, of sending the message of, if you even say the word, that's offensive. That really bugged me for a multitude of reasons. Anyways, one of my followers over there said, hey, you should try Clapper. You might like it. It's more about engagement, and people are authentic. And over there, it was the same as I am here. Like I loved going live and reading every comment and interacting with people. So I said, I'll give it a shot. And I came over, and it was like 4 days in, maybe. Obviously, for the people who care about numbers, the growth was substantial comparatively. But for me, the reason I stayed was there was a lot more people who cared far less about what I was posting and far more about me as a person. And that was really like, you know what? I'm sold. I'm all in on Clapper. And I was cross-posting for a couple weeks, I think, at the beginning. And then I said, there's not point to that anymore. So it is what it is. And I went all in on Clapper. And just recently, I started cross-posting on other platforms as well. But that's the shortest answer I can give as to why I'm here.
Now, Tim, there is a multitude of things I want to ask you about. But this question is probably the one you least expected me to ask you. One of your videos has just under 9 million views. What's it like to have a viral video like that?
I'll be completely honest with you. it almost made things worse, if you will. So at first it was you find this wave, right? You see there's a lot more views, likes, comments coming in than normal. You're like, this is strange. And then it was almost like at the time I answered legitimately every single comment at the time. With the exception of if it's like a smiley face, I might not answer that. But if it's a legitimate comment, every single one. And you do the same, Tank. I feel like if you took the time of day to reach out to me in my comments, and then I should give you the time of my day. That's anyways. But it got to the point where the comments were legitimately coming in so fast. I'm not exaggerating this. They were coming in so fast that I could not keep up. So I would put a comment in, go back, put another comment, go back, put another comment, and then there was like 10 new comments. It was insane. So when I would go to bed at night, I'd wake up, there would be, I can't even guess how many comments on that one video just overnight. So at first it was kind of cool, and then it ended up being all very overwhelming. I mean, granted, it's on me as well, right? Like this should be for fun, but my brain's busted, right? So because of that, like self-imposed responsibility, it was
Right.
kind of a curse. But from that, people started to think that I work for Clapper, that I'm employed in some way, that I have some sort of stake in the company, and I was getting all these questions and whatever. So I think it really depends on the topic of the video if you get one that goes viral. I had another one that was like 3 million views. My answer's slightly different from that one. But because that specific video was about here's 5 things to help you if you're coming from TikTok to Clapper, essentially. It wasn't that specifically, but that was essentially it. I get everybody coming over from the ad and saying, what do I do? How do I grow? How do I do this? And all this other stuff. So long story short, as I ramble, it kind of sucked, to be honest with you. Sounds bad.
It's not an issue I have, so I had to ask. Now, I'm sure I'll circle back around to asking Clapper specific questions, because part of the reason I do these interviews is because we have such an influx of new people, and the subject of a lot of your content is pro Clapper, how to succeed on here, how to make quality videos and all that stuff. Really good content, by the way. But I want to start a different aspect for you. What, other than being Canadian, what turned you into such a super fan of hockey?
Oh, that's a good question, my friend. You know, it's ironic. I have no one. I shouldn't say no one. I have virtually no one in my friendship and family who watches, likes, or even cares about the game itself. So it almost became like I have my grandfather. I call him my papa. He used to cheer for Toronto when he was alive, and I cheered for Montreal. They're rival teams. That was pretty much the extent of anyone in my life who liked the game. But it almost became like an obsession because that was a connection with my papa, right? And he's the kind of guy that like he shows his love by teasing you, you know? So we would watch games and we'd rib each other and we'd poke at each other, and it was so fun. What's up, Shell? So that was the start of it. But I think part of it is maybe goes with the bipolar. There's any hobbies I have this tendency to become obsessed. So since it was something that I was like starting to enjoy because of my papa, well, now I had to know everything about the sport. Now I had to watch every game. Now I had to be like the expert on it so that I could really dig a good jab into papa. And then from that, I just started to like the game and the history of it because of that. So what all started as a way for me to like intelligently insult someone I love, it turned into a lifelong passion, I guess.
I absolutely understand that. And I would say I have been a fringe fan of hockey for a long enough period of time that I remember when there was this new guy on the scene named Gretzky.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I have been at least a fringe fan of the hockey for many years, so I appreciate that. Now, this next question is inspired specifically by a video called 10 Defenders, 10,000 Points.
Yeah.
Are you a statistic? Are you a statistics guy?
Yeah. My dream job, it's not in the cards, but if I could have my absolute dream job, there's no other, this is like, even if it's outlandish, my dream job is to be a statistician for sports in some capacity.
I would love that myself. Actually, I've always been about stats, and a lot of the trivia contests I've done in the past. I've won trivia contests because I know some fairly obscure statistics of the major sports. You know, football, basketball, baseball, and hockey. I used to know a bit more of those stats than I do now, but you know. All right. Yeah, welcome in, Shell. It's good to see you. Welcome in, Valerie Freeman. Ronan, good to see you, brother. Now, my next question. You are rarely ever seen without that outstanding smile. So what is it that has that smile constantly on your face? Because that's almost disturbing to be smiling so often.
Honestly, the core reason why I feel better when other people feel better. So I say all the time, like, when I look at myself in the mirror at home, I don't really like anything I see. I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I live my life. I really just I detest myself at the core of it, right? And I've had to depend on a lot of people who basically can see through that self-imposed lie. People who spread love and positivity, enough the fake kind, but genuinely care about me enough to pull me out of the pit. So I feel like it's my responsibility to do the same. So ultimately, if I'm not going to be smiling, then there's going to be a reason. I'm going to try and use it for good, if you will, right? That's the core reason why. And you feel better when you smile.
I'll tell you what's underneath the way I interact with you, Tim. It is my objective to help you see you the way I do, if that makes sense.
Same for you, man.
You're a genuinely good guy, and the way people respond to you, that should tell you something. You know, because people are naturally drawn to you. They love interacting with you. And you are very positive, and it's genuine. It doesn't come across. You can tell when people are doing it, but they're faking it. And you're just a genuine guy, and people respond to it. That's why I say I would love to help you learn to see yourself the way I see you.
I do say all the time too, like, we're immune to our own advice. So it's funny. We've talked about this before, Tank. Like, because I feel the exact same way about you. You know, if you're struggling, like, I want to do everything I can to remind you of how wonderful and inspiring and passionate and how good of a friend you are. But when it comes to me, like, I can't do that for myself. You know what I mean? So I completely understand exactly what you're saying. We're two peas in a pod in that element.
I'm quite sure there's people out there like Ronan, for example, that would love it if I could see myself the way, say, he sees me, or the way you see me. So I absolutely get that. Tina wants to know, what hair treatment do you use?
if in case somebody's not aware, I love Tina. If you hear me smack talking her, it is in love. I don't know how this joke started. I just don't. What hair treatment do I use? It's au naturel, baby. If you know what it really is. It was a lot of substances, a lot of stress, children. The hair comes out in certain places and it stays in just the right place where from a certain angle, it looks like this guy's got a lot of hair. But if you shift a little bit, you're like, no, it's terrible. So that's my treatment.
I will say this, Tim. If you ever decide to go with treating with your hair with some substances, it's mayonnaise, not Miracle Whip. Just saying.
Good point.
Now, Paul wants to know, besides hockey, what else are you passionate about?
It's a good question. As far as like, there's two answers. Well, three really. I'm super passionate. Now, this is ironic because the change in my content recently, but I am super passionate about helping people realize that they're not alone. Whatever you're going through, somebody else has been through it and succeeded, and you will too. I cannot stand it when someone is down on themselves and feeling like they have no hope. That's my passion, which is ironic again because I've changed my content away from that. That's a different story. So, so there's that.
I'm sure you'll circle back around to it. That's just who you are. My question regarding that.
You can see hobbies are concerned. These are board games. I'm a big board game guy. So as far as hobbies are concerned, there's that too.
All right, I've got a question regarding your answer for that question. Anyone that knows you knows you're a huge proponent of good, positive mental health. Having said that, and I know it's something you struggle with, but what helps you to keep your mental health at its most positive?
What helps me, honestly, is helping other people. Now, there's I have to step back, I guess. If anyone is struggling, it's important to know that no amount, I'm reaching out on a ledge here to say what I say, but no amount of positivity or smiles or laughter or whatever is enough to truly treat mental health or addiction or whatever. So for, I don't know, a couple decades of my life, I wished and hoped and pleaded that I would just magically get better. And I surrounded myself with some fun people and whatever, but that really isn't a solution. So at the base of it, I had to go get treatment. It required a lot of medication for me specifically, not for everybody. It required a lot of counseling, a lot of self-evaluation, and it's constant and for the rest of your life, at least for me. So know that as the foundation. But once I had that foundation in, then what my number one course of action is being of use, being in service. If somebody is feeling low on themselves, then I feel better about myself if I can help them feel better about themselves. That's it.
That makes a lot of sense. And something else I want to ask you, because something I know you and I agree quite a bit on, is how important it is just to be kind to people. So what helps you to maintain that, to continue to show people kindness when they're not doing things that make you want to be kind to them, when people are being ugly or hateful?
Well, I go back to, I grew up in church when I was a little boy, and they teach you something called the golden rule, right? You want to treat others how you want to be treated. And it's funny because I was talking to my son about this topic today. It's his birthday, by the way. I have twins.
Happy birthday.
And we were talking about that very subject. I said, it is illogical if somebody, let's say somebody's experienced a lot of pain in their life, right? And some people want to take that and spread that pain, spread that hate, make somebody feel just as bad as they felt. But that's really illogical. You should want no one to feel the pain that you have felt. So for me specifically, if I encounter, it can be somebody that I'm really close with who says something really painful to me, or it can be just a random troll or whatever. Somebody is rude in some way. Shell just said it, hurt people, right? I know that no matter what someone says to me, as much as it may sting, as much as sometimes it rattles me for a while, but they're in pain themselves, right? So it almost pushes me more to be kind, because I know that person is probably hurting themselves. So like I tell people all the time, if you get trolls, the best thing you can do is just be nice to them, right? There's a limit, obviously. If they just want to continue, it is what it is. But I will almost never, if I get a troll comment, respond with hatred or even simply delete. I will try and make them smile or change their perspective or something, because I would hope someone would do that for me, I guess.
One of the questions I wrote down is similar to that, asking what in your mind is the best way to handle haters. I'm guessing your answer to that is similar to what you just said.
Yeah. Honestly, if you find a hater in your life, be nice to them. That's it. I've had a lot of people around there, at least towards me. I'm not saying I've changed a life here, but at least towards me, instantly changed their perspective because they're having a bad day and they were hoping someone would get hurt, and someone turned around and showed them kindness and they feel better. It's you'd be surprised how many perspectives you can change just by spreading kindness.
Nice to meet you, Valerie. Thank you. Now, here, this is a general question. It could probably touch off a pretty good give and take if we took it that way. The basis of the question is just simply Canada versus America.
What about it?
For example, one thing I've seen, like for you, you're a frozen yogurt guy. Tina's an ice cream girl. I'm wondering how much of that plays into it, being Canadian and Tina being American. You know, is it just a difference in the country's attitudes, or because there's a lot of that give and take.
Okay, so I got to get a little serious about this topic, and Miss Tracy's Canadian too, fellow Canuck down there. Okay, here's something that Tina doesn't get. Okay, the frozen yogurt that I'm talking about, she hasn't had it. Okay, so all of her nonsense, all of her lies she spews, it's all ignorance. She doesn't know. That's what I'm saying. So the equivalent here is Tina will tell you that all these stories about art, right? And how great this artist is, whatever. And I could have my opinion on art and say, oh, this artist is terrible. I don't know about that artist. It's ignorance, right? I'm not the expert. Tina is not an expert in frozen yogurt. She's had that soft serve diarrhea garbage. That's what she's talking about. This frozen yogurt scoops like ice cream. It's flavorful. It's beautiful. That's where it's at. That's what you have to know, Tank. The foot goes down.
And that's one of those, like, I am definitely in the Mayo Wars. I definitely took a side with the one.
Tank, I'll say this back to Canadian versus Tim just dug his grave. Tina, if you haven't buried me yet, you're not gonna. But here's an example. I will say this. This is me giving full credit where credit is due. Americans versus Canadians to food, for example. You Americans do it so much better with almost everything. I remember I went down, my first time I went to Tennessee, I'd never had Krispy Kreme donuts before. This is back when I used to eat wheat. And someone had a box of them, and I said, what's that? They go, oh, it's Krispy Kreme. I said, what's that? And they looked at me like I had three heads, right? I ate that donut, and it was like Jesus himself touched me on the forehead and said, you are healed, my son. That's how good that donut was, right? And it was the same, even I had Dr. Pepper down there. The Dr. Pepper down there is like a symphony to your taste buds compared to the Dr. Pepper we got up here. We don't make stuff as good, as fattening, as sweet, as bad for you. Like, so I give credit where credit's due.
Now, I have a different perspective on things. I've never been to Canada. I will start out by saying that. But I've been to 20 other countries. So I've had I've been able to experience a lot of things that are vastly different from what we have in the United States. And I have an appreciation not only for what they have, but for what we have here. So in most of these, like you'll notice, I never took a side on the frozen yogurt versus ice cream. I love them both. Same with crunchy versus creamy peanut butter. It's peanut butter. It's all good. I like to, you may hear me tease you or Blues Man. I don't think I've ever teased Miss Tracy, but with you or Blues Man, it's us guys. It's different for me. It's to me, it'd be more disrespectful to tease Miss Tracy, if that makes any sense.
She's tough. She's tough.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Okay, this next one is I know it's the initial question is going to be it's going to touch off an instant response to you from you, but I ask it for a reason. So, Tim, you're an author.
Oh, Tank, why'd you do that? Yes, I wrote a book. Please don't buy it. Don't look for it. If you've never written a book before, we're going to go off on a tangent now. Okay. If you've never written a book before and you're looking to publish a book, you learn a lot through the process. Link is not in bio, Tim. So
mine is in my bio.
I did have a little help this time because I'm writing another book. It's not ready yet, but you can go through Kindle now and self-publish a book, and you basically don't pay anything up front. It's a great process.
Kindle Direct Publishing.
It's fantastic, right? Well, I didn't know that at the time, right? So I went with an independent publisher, and the book itself is not perfect because I didn't realize that margins were a different size, so there was format issues. But the bigger problem is they set the pricing, I had no control. So now this paperback book, if you want to, now this is Canadian dollars, mind you, but if you want to buy that book for any of the Canadian people, it's like $55, which is absolutely ludicrous. So when I signed with them in the first place, I basically said, I want to make it so that I don't need to make any money. I just want people to enjoy what I wrote, right? And they didn't do that at all. They didn't listen at all. And they've yet to pay me a dime from the sales of the book. So, yes, I've written a book. If I write another one,
Tim Shady says you guys should go write a book called The Struggles of Being Tim.
What's up, Scholarist?
Now, the reason I asked that question, and I could have almost given you word for word what you said as a response, is because I know you're writing a book. I'm curious as to what your process is in writing this book, from the formulation of the idea to the actual sitting down and writing chapter by chapter.
Well, the first book I wrote was on it's heavily statistically based, but long story short, in hockey right now, players are drafted to teams. There's a backstory I won't get into, but sometimes a guy who's really good, he's drafted super late. And I was like, why is that the case? So long story short, that's what the book is on. I'm trying to pick a best player who's drafted first overall, a best player who's drafted 52nd overall, etc. So when I was writing that book, at least for my mind, it was a lot easier to write that style because each player is going to get a page. Each player has a certain length of stuff for each section of that page. So it's easy for me to fit mentally in that box. So it was a lot of research, but writing it was really easy. When I tried to write another book on my life, that was like super overwhelming. Too much freedom. Virtually impossible for my brain, at least, right? So I started writing it in a journal style. So I'm going to write basically what's on my mind that specific day. And then hopefully there could be something inspirational or I don't know, who knows. That was how I approached that. That worked a lot better for me. But I mean, I'm sure you could say, Tank, your process was a certain way. Scholarist was here, at least. She's a writer. Everyone's process is a little bit different, right? For me, at least, though, I find like I don't want a lot of freedom. I like it when I have a lot more structure to follow. Otherwise, my brain is it's not intelligent enough to handle it, I don't think.
Well, I will say this regarding my process. You haven't read my book. Stress was a big driver for me in writing that. And if you've read my poems, you understand that.
My favorite part about that book, Tank, I told you before, I think, was when you were talking about how you were feeling in regards to wanting to be with your little girls and you couldn't, and that like internal struggle that pulled at my heartstrings. That was my. It sounds bad to say that was my favorite part. Reading you were in so much pain, but because I could
absolutely understand that. My whole intention with writing it was initially just to get it out, so I didn't have that constantly eating away at me inside. You know what I mean? My other objective in putting it into book form was hoping other people would understand what I went through, because it has helped shape me into the man I am today. So that's kind of what I did that for. I'd like to veer off into some specific to Clapper questions, if you don't mind, and whatever else somebody else might put up. But before we get into these other questions I have, just in general, because you are who among I know you don't like naming names specifically, but just who are some of the people that inspired you on Clapper?
Good question. So before I answer any of the Clapper questions, it's important for anyone tuning in to know that my advice is complicated, because anything I'm going to tell you right now at this moment in time, I am not really following myself, right? So just know that in your head. The people who inspire me on this app are anyone who is, how do I put it? I love the people that don't care about the numbers. I love the people that care about who you are rather than what you post. The people that inspire me are people who put out what makes them happy. So there's tons. This is in no particular order. Sean Hintz, Annie Abe, BigTank, Josie RN. God, I'd have to list them all out. Actually, I guess on the more important aspect is not who people are specifically, but early on I went through this you go through phases in the app, right? So if you asked me, Tina, of course, if you ask me who I would have named, 2 months in, let's say, my answer is vastly different than it is now, right? For me specifically, and partially not on them, partially it's my own fault for putting expectations on people, but I found out there's people that I thought were one way and they're not, right? So the answer is constantly evolving. And if you ask me in 4 months, it'll change again, I should have had time to prep for these questions, Tank.
Well, maybe if I gave you some ahead of time, it would have been helpful. But I'm going to ask Paul's question. He wants to know who influences you most in your life and why.
Like not social media, my real life.
Yes.
My biggest influence is my wife and children. I do everything I do for them. I had gotten in a fight with my wife recently because I have really terrible knees, and I've known this forever. I got told when I was a teenager I'd have to have knee surgery in my 40s or 50s. I have a disorder called patellofemoral syndrome. So the kneecap, patella, is rubbing against the femur, femoral. There's no cartilage. So it's creaking, right? So right now, my wife is going through, she went back to school. She's going through to be a teacher. So we have 2 years to make it through. In my mind, I'm going to push through. I'm in constant pain all the time, but I make that sacrifice for the family. It's my job. It's what I do. And she gets mad. She's like, you should go for surgery. And then you get into this whole complication of, well, where does the money come from and all this other stuff, right? But that's the reason I'm clean and sober. That's the reason I go to work every day. That's the reason that I do anything is for the family. Without them, I'm lost. I have no sense of purpose, which is unhealthy in a sense, but it is what it is, you know.
I actually understand that though, Tim. So, Ms. Tracy says, ask you why your favorite color is orange.
That's a fun question. I answered that in Tina's group a while ago. There's two reasons. Number one, I like the way it looks, honestly. It's bright, it's vibrant, slightly obnoxious. It's kind of like me. But the core of it is, honestly, because we talked about earlier, like I don't really like any aspect of myself, really. And I'm not exaggerating. No, you know I'm not exaggerating. People think I exaggerate, right? If you really struggle with self-loathing, which many people do, right? You don't see what other people see, you know? So for me, like, if you were to ask me what color describes you, how do you see yourself in a color? It's like the most disgusting color you can think of, like a dirty brownish green mud mired sewage color. I don't know. And orange is this bright, vibrant, like star. Like you cannot help but like just be drawn to it. That's why orange is my favorite. Orange is what I want to be. Orange is what I want to show to the world. That's why I love orange. That's why I put
Tim,
every Tracy video needs more orange.
when people ask me my favorite color and I answer it, I always get the very first word I hear after it is, really? Because my favorite color is pink.
Why's pink your favorite?
Because it's pretty and I have girls and it's been around me a lot. It's not unmanly to like pink. And I do, so. Now, I missed this, Ronan, and I apologize, but I got it now. I'm going to read everything Ronan said, which ends with a question. It says, Tim is an incredibly smart guy. Agreed. Is it possible that part of your depression is based on knowing what is really going on in the world?
I don't think so. Maybe lately. So I'll answer this in two phases. Ordinarily, I pay zero attention to the news. I find the news incredibly depressing. I'm sure that if I paid more attention, for me, that would make things far worse. Lately, right now, if I'm being completely honest, it's hard being a Canadian on this app, honestly. I don't talk about politics ever. I don't talk about anything that's like, I call them the hot button topics. So I don't talk about politics or religion or anything like that. Not because you can't have an opinion on it. I don't want to deal with like all the emotions that are involved over a topic that someone's probably not going to change their mind over anyway. But lately, I remember I would come into lives and I'd be chatting. My favorite part about lives on Clapper is if you go to TikTok, for example, and you want to go to a live, it's more like you're watching a show, right? There's no interaction. You're kind of like admiring this person on the screen. Whereas on Clapper, you're kind of hanging out, right? This is your chance to like get to know people, etc. I love that aspect, right? And it turned into every single live that I entered, and I'm only in the comments, right? Turns into politics nonstop, which is fine if you love that. But for me, it's not for me. So especially right now with what's happening, being a Canadian, it's really hard for me specifically. So the runabout answer for Ronan is it does impact my mental health terribly, but that's not the core of it because I traditionally stay away from it.
Okay, now ordinarily I would ask the question, advice for new Clapper creators, but I'm going to bypass that question because anybody that wants good advice on how to succeed in Clapper, how to grow, how to do whatever you want to do, go look at that man's content. There's videos all over it telling you how to be the best Clapper creator you can be. What I will ask you is, I know that you've been pulling back recently from Clapper. How has that benefited your mental health?
I will address your first question that you bypassed super quick.
Okay.
If you want to succeed, quote unquote, on Clapper, anyone can do it. Anybody. I'm not that special. I'm not terribly nice to look at. Anyone can do it. I came on this app and before I stepped back, I was averaging between 5 and 1,000 new followers every single day. I hit 100,000 followers in less than 8 months. I had 25 paid supporters. Anyone can do it. How I was doing it requires a lot of work. And that's why I stepped back. When I came onto this platform, I wanted to number one, be a way to talk about mental health and addiction and hopefully inspire at least one person every day. And slowly over time, it turned into a second job, if you will. So I had to make the decision, and it was super painful because, honest to God, I really am struggling right now with knowing there's going to be people. Maybe this is selfishness. Maybe it's a little deranged, but whatever. It is what it is. I really am struggling knowing that there's people who are struggling, people who are feeling alone, feeling like it's not worth continuing, feeling all those negative things. Ordinarily, I would be scrolling for hours trying to find these people so I can hopefully do something to pull them out of the pit. I am really struggling with the fact that I am not doing that right now. I feel like I am letting a lot of people down. And I know that's illogical. It is what it is. But I had to make the hard decision to step back because it was either I continue to go the direction I'm headed and I have to basically give my life to Clapper, or I have to step back and realize like this you've invested too much. This needs to be a hobby, not a job. You're not responsible for people's successes or failures, and you're putting that on yourself. So the answer is not simple. It's hard not being on Clapper every day for hours a day like I was. Like it's hard in my soul, feeling like I'm neglecting a lot of strangers that I feel like could make a difference. I feel like I'm neglecting a lot of really great friends that I've made. But in a sense, I know that it's what I have to do, at least for now,
Right.
to save my sanity. So for now, it's contradictory in a sense, I guess, because I want the content to be about mental health and addiction and all that other stuff. But for my own mental health and all that, I have to post hockey content that nobody really cares about in the first place. That's where we're at right now.
Well, I can tell you this, and this just from my own perspective. First of all, your own mental health, you gotta protect that first and foremost before you can ever consider helping someone else. So stepping back for the benefit of your mental health was a good move, even though a lot of people miss you when you step back and you're not out there every day like you were. Also, every time you're on live, every time you post content, you reach people. Maybe you don't see it directly, but as somebody that you have reached on more than one occasion, trust me, every time you're on Clapper in any capacity, whether it's all day or just a little bit each day or whatever, you're reaching people. So, excuse me. That's my blood sugar, so I'll take a shot while we're talking. But to finish what I'm saying, you are absolutely reaching people. And I don't know, I mean, that's one of the things that I've learned. You know my content. I do my best to get people to understand my perspective on life. Life is a blessing. And I'm one of those people that had to literally stare at my mortality in the face when I had my stroke to understand what a blessing life really is. No matter what we're struggling with, if we wake up every day whatever we're struggling with, we're surviving it. We're getting through it. Whether, however we got to get through. But when you wake up each day, that's also a new opportunity, to be the best day you've had, to reach out and be a friend to somebody. And that is such an important thing for people. Just being a friend to somebody can make such a difference in their life. You don't even know. And that's why I'm telling you, Tim, you reach people every day, whether you see it or not.
I love you, man. I honestly, honest to God, appreciate it. I think when it comes down to it, because there's a lot of people in the comments who understand this. Not everyone has been to the brink and back. Not everyone has, right? But to those who have, survived addiction and suicide and had a lot of people pass on that it was before their time. I think that's the core struggle, right? Like I got out of the situation I was in. Like in many degrees, I really do owe my life in service to try and help other people out of that whatever. But it's like you said, right? You have to take care of yourself. When I was in rehab and in recovery and whatever, I couldn't help anyone there either. I had to get through that and progress and learn, and then I got to the side and I was able. I mean, it's ironic in a sense because I'm not actively using. The mental health is pretty good and whatever else, but you get to the point where you have to assess yourself before you head to the bad side, right? And that's kind of where it got. Like, but I hope you know how much I appreciate you. I really do.
I appreciate you. And Tim, there have been days where you specifically got me through a rough time because you are among a handful of people I know, even off the app, I can reach out if I need to. And you've been there for me at a time when I needed it, and it's really appreciated. I do have a couple more questions. I hope this one makes you smile when I ask it. What is the real value of blue check verification?
That's a good question, Tank. What is the real value of blue check? There's two answers to that question. If you have a business, if you're selling stuff, there's a couple situations where a blue check is actually quite valuable. That's like, for all of us who have blue checks, that's got to be like a 2 to 5% of us. For the rest of us, like you and me, Tank, it really doesn't mean anything. I don't mean this like it's going to sound, so bear with me. There's a lot of people that I've helped get blue checks. I'm not the end all be all, but giving advice to. Okay? And what I say is basically like, it doesn't define you, If you get it, that's great. It's cool. I personally only applied because I wanted to be an ambassador for the app. That's why I applied, right? But I went into it knowing that if I get it, that's great. If I don't, that's great too. It's not going to change anything. So if you get a blue check, it's not like this magical dial gets turned and now you get all these new followers and all these views and all these comments and you start making money, and none of that happens, right? Really, it just sits beside your name.
Right.
Should you go for a blue check? That question's different for everybody. But if you want to go for it, my advice is always, if you get it, that's great. If you don't, that's great too. It doesn't change who you are. It doesn't validate your worth as a person. It doesn't make you any more special. You are important and valued just the way you are, regardless of what happens. So I said in that video I made for you, Tank, and I swear to God, I meant it then, I mean it now. If I could give away my blue check to help someone get it who deserves it, and I would gladly give it up. Because it's not, the blue check means something a lot more on other apps where you can make money from views and all that other stuff. On this app, the amount of people that the blue check is actually important for is quite minuscule.
I will tell you why it was important for me to go ahead and continue to try to get it, because I had so many people not just believing I should have it, but getting out there making content for it. Phil Hahn wrote a song called Blue Check for Tank, all of which was not necessary. But to me, for everybody to put it out there that they thought I should have this, it would just be disrespectful for me not to go ahead and try for it. And at the time I got it, I didn't care if I got it or not. The reason I was pushing for it it's my way of acknowledging my friends that believed in me, whether I believed in me or not. That meant a lot. The fact that you made a video for me means a lot more to me than the blue check beside my name. Believe me.
And Diana makes a good point below. She said, I fully support the people that get it who actually make content. That's part of the reason. I have to be careful what I say because it's going to get misconstrued potentially. But it's a little bit maddening when someone has a blue check. Now, this is partially my own problem because I have a feeling of what a blue check means. That's not the official thing. That's my problem. But when I see someone has a blue check and they're not someone who makes their own content, or they're not someone who invests in the community, or they're not, I'm like, then why have it, So
Right.
I don't know. But I agree with Diana 100%.
All right. Before I wind up the interview, I do want to take this time and let everyone know that 1 week from today, April 6th, is a special edition of Big Tank Talk. And the reason it's special is because I'm interviewing Bluesman, but not just Bluesman. I'm also interviewing nhlphd. So it'll be my first time interviewing more than one guest. I'm really looking forward to it because those guys are both tremendously talented musicians. For those of you that know him, and he's down in the chat, I'm still working on getting Ronan to agree on a date that I can interview him. But I do take a point, take a break in every interview and announce next week's interview, and I really hope to see some of you there. We could probably close out on just this question if you wanted to, if we want to get into it a little bit. I know you've offered a lot of advice through your content in your incredibly positive lives, and I love the lives that I've been in to interact with you. So from your perspective, then, what's the best advice you can give to people to avoid clapper burnout?
Yeah, that's a funny question. The advice I give is just post what makes you happy. Don't worry about the views. That I've gotten into, I don't know how many arguments with fairly large creators that tell me that's terrible advice. I'm going to keep giving it. Post what makes you happy. The numbers don't matter at all. If you made it, I say if you made it with your own two hands, you know what I mean, right? If you made it with your own two hands, if you're proud of it, freaking display it. Because ultimately, on social media, in my opinion, at least on this app, you should do it for you. Don't do it for somebody else. And it's ironic because for a while I would preach that message and I didn't follow myself, right? So that's part of the reason for the change of content as well.
Right.
But that's the advice. Post what makes you happy. Stop worrying about the numbers. And if you made it, if you're proud of it, if you want to show it off, then post it. That's the biggest advice I can give.
Now, I would like to add to that.
Avoid the drama.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. Everybody, in the time you're on Clapper, will reach a point where it's overwhelming. It's detrimental to your mental health. Don't ever be afraid. Take a step back. If that means you leave the app for a while, do that. If that's what's best for you and your mental health, the people here that you're friends with, that you've taken time to get to know, will understand, because we've all been there. I mean, I guarantee you, every friend I have on here has taken at least one significant break away from Clapper because they needed to for themselves. So I would say that would be my biggest piece of advice to avoid Clapper burnout. Don't feel like you got to stay here if you're here for anybody but yourself, you're not here for the right reasons. You know, I am the closest I know personally to a shut-in. I rarely leave my house. So Clapper is how I'm social. If there's stress, if there's drama, I sidestep it. I don't let it get into my head. You know, I have friends, when they're struggling, I'm struggling for them, but that's the same. Think about it. In your circle, in your world, completely separated from Clapper, if there's somebody you care about and they're struggling, of course you care, you want to help. And it's the same with the friends you make here on Clapper. But don't do that. Just like in your own life, you're not going to help somebody else to your own detriment, even if it's family. But definitely don't do that on Clapper. Don't put yourself out to a point that is negatively affecting you in your real relation. Not that these aren't real relationships, but in your real world relationships. And the people that you can reach out and touch and see every day. Don't let your Clapper life affect that in a negative way.
Yeah. And if you have to take a break, I suggest don't delete your account, just delete the app. Not that you have to use your account if you come back, but if you want to use it, then it's still there, right?
Absolutely. And I know several people that have done exactly that, deleted the app, but didn't delete their account, took a break, and then they came back. You know, it's Clapper can be a really wonderful thing. Just don't let it overwhelm you. You know, use it for however it best benefits you. I know several people that the artist community, and I love them all to a person that I've never met. They're all talented, and I say eventually I'd like to own one piece of art from every artist that I've met on here. Right now I have one. So I've made a start. I got one now. But like Tina knows I want a piece of her art, and eventually I'll get one. I'll figure it out. Same with J-Dubs. Same with Callie Simca, Mike Nizzi. The artist community is might be my very favorite community on this app, and I'm not an artist in any way, shape, or form. I am a poet and a writer, but that I guess that's art if you look at it from that perspective. I just see it differently, I guess. But this is how I'm social. But those of you that know me, you know, I don't hang around drama. I don't, you know, even if I have friends that aren't getting along, I keep those friends even at arm's distance, because that's not good for me. So I do, you know, I use this in a way that I feel like it really benefits me. All right, now we got a couple more minutes if somebody wants to ask Tim one more question.
I want to, people can ask, but I want to tag on to what you said as well. Like, I find that a lot of people, like I'm one of them, in my own life, there's not a lot of people that really care. There's not a lot of people that really care if I'm struggling or if I have like exciting news. People don't care, right? So part of it is, you know, if you start to develop relationships on this app, and it draws you in, right? Because some of these people really do care. Especially it's almost mind-boggling because it's social media, right? Like these are typically strangers, right? But you really can develop real relationships here. But there comes a line, at least for me, where I start to place my own expectations on people. I learned a really good lesson from J-Dubs. Great dude. He didn't come up with it, but he shared it. It's basically like there's 3 different types of people, right? So you have leaf people, you have branch people, and you have root people. Leaf people you'll see them everywhere, right? As soon as life gets a little bit tough, the wind blows them away, they're gone, right? Branch people are a little tougher. They can take some weight, right? But as soon as somebody really tries to hang, they snap their gun. And root people are there. They're immovable, right? You cannot get mad at a leaf person for being a leaf person, right? You can't expect a branch person to be a root person. It's who they are, right? And that took me a long time to learn on this app. Not everyone is going to be a real friend. Not everyone, well, whatever you determine to be a friend. Not everyone is going to give you extra time of day. Not everyone is going to have contact outside of the app.
Right.
Everyone has their own reasons for being on this app. And if you're like me and I'm on here to reach people and make a difference and whatever, that doesn't mean everybody's here for that reason. Even if they look like they're here for that reason. That was a huge, super important lesson that took me a long time to learn. A lot of heartache on my own part, just being disappointed with how people let me down. They didn't let me down. That's my own fault for placing that importance on them, right? So it's a huge, important lesson to learn that I had to learn.
And my friends, that's been an hour already. Trust me that I could stretch this interview into 2 hours or more easily. Tim, you're one of the most fascinating people I know. And you are a genuine friend, and I appreciate you so much for that. I appreciate you taking the time to sit and let me ask you questions and pick your brain a little bit. And